Now let's turn to financial advice, with advisors concerned about the compensation scheme of last resort. To get more of an insight into this, Sarah Abood is the Chief Executive of Financial Advice Association Australia and joins us again now. Sarah, good to see you.
Great to be here, thanks.
Now this bill, which it's a compensation scheme of last resort, just explain what that is, why it's set up. This is what essentially, if an investor loses money perhaps because of poor advice, the advisor doesn't cover it, what happens?
Yeah, so often that'll be because the advice firm has gone into liquidation. It doesn't exist anymore. So that's why the scheme's really important. It means that there is access to some compensation for people who are in that position. They can potentially get at least some of a judgment that AFCA might have made in their favour from the scheme, which otherwise is money that wouldn't be available to investors. So it is very important that the scheme exists.
What actually prompted this? It's obviously based on the collapse of some advisors and the fact that investors had lost significant amounts of money.
Yeah, so the scheme's relatively new, and what we're finding is that the calls on that scheme are far greater than were anticipated. And it's been in the news in the last couple of days because the scheme has just published its expectation as to how much money it will need in next financial year to pay compensation to consumers. And that for the advice sector alone is $67.3 million.
All right, who pays for that?
Which is a lot of money. So as I said at the outset, it's actually the advisors who didn't do the wrong thing. So this is cases where
those left standing.
That's right. The firm that did the wrong thing is out of the picture for whatever reason. So the rest of the profession has to make good. And the challenge in particular that we're facing right now is our numbers are going down. So we're sitting at just under 15,300 advisors now. That's almost half down from where we were in 2019. So that means that there are fewer and fewer advisors paying these larger and larger costs. So just that 1 year, that 67.3 million, that's well over 4,000 per advisor for a single year. And these advisors are not big businesses, they're small businesses. That the sustainability of it is really in question.
What are you hearing from them, given this? Is actually many of them saying this is just not worthwhile? Oh
look, it's becoming a real problem because the costs of providing advice are consistently going up. So to be an advisor, it's become a bit like being an obstetrician. You've got to pay professional indemnity insurance, you've got to pay licence fees, ASIC levies, and now the CSLR levy on top of it. So for many advisors, your kind of startup costs before you pay staff or before you pay for your rent and so on are sort of $70,000. So it's becoming expensive. Those expenses are being passed on to consumers, of course. So it's one of the key reasons why advice is becoming quite expensive for consumers.
And as a result, do we see those consumers then shunning advice, and therefore you're going to see it contract even further?
Yeah. Look, interestingly, it's actually not demand that's contracting, because even though advice is expensive, I think consumers really understand the need for it. And particularly as we've got more people coming into retirement, you really need advice. This system is so complex. How many people know that whether they can access the pension loan scheme or what estate planning advice they might need, or whether they should have an annuity on retirement? Like, these decisions are very hard to make on your own. So people are still seeking advice. There's still a big imbalance between demand and supply. And that's another factor why advice is getting more expensive. It's not uncommon to see 4,000 plus as the cost of advice. People are still affording it, but it's heading in the wrong direction. We really want to make advice more accessible, more affordable for more people. We've got to get the cost down. The CSLR is one thing that's contributing quite substantially to the cost.
So, Sarah, your association maintaining that the funding mechanism of this compensation scheme is flawed. What's the answer then? Look,
one of the key issues that we have with it is many of the failures that have gone into the compensation scheme have actually been caused by product failure. So in the case of EMP Financial Group Dixon Advisory, it was the failure of a product called URF that triggered the collapses and the need for compensation. There's been publicity recently about two related failures called the Shield Master Fund and First Guardian. So they're both product collapses. They're products that were invested in property development, for example, and loans and so on. One of them potentially looks like it could even have in fact been a Ponzi scheme. But these products have collapsed. Products are making no compensation, no contribution to the compensation for consumers right now. So advisors are having to pay for the collapse of products. So you can see how unsustainable that is. It's terribly unfair, but practically it's also unsustainable. We can't keep making these payments.
All right, so if it's not simply up to the advisors then to be held financially responsible, who shares the burden?
Yes, well, at the moment, advisors are paying the full cost for advice, and these failures are being deemed to be advice failures. Our position has been that this is not appropriate, that the advice sector was not responsible and certainly not entirely responsible for these failures, and that other sectors should be making a contribution. Treasury have been doing a review of the compensation scheme. It's fairly new, so they've been taking a look at it, seeing how it was implemented. We've made a submission to that inquiry along with many others, and we're hoping that we're getting close to seeing the outcome of that review and that we will get the government to act on the findings of that so the scheme can be made more sustainable and still be there into the future for consumers.
What response, I mean, obviously you say that's yet to, the decision from the government on the scheme is yet to be finalised, but have you had a sympathetic ear from the government? Do they appreciate the issues that face each advisor? Yeah,
look, I would say the government is aware of the issues. So the previous minister, Stephen Jones, certainly had expressed that he saw that there were concerns. He commissioned the review by Treasury that we're hoping is now getting close to finalisation. And our current minister, Dr. Daniel Molino, he's new to the portfolio, but yes, we've met with him, many have met with him and expressed concerns. So I certainly have every hope that we will see some quick action.